Yo soy mojado y nadie sabe que por el río yo me pasé. Y disfrazado siempre he vivido y de los guardias me cuidaré. Les aseguro cuánto he sufrido.
During the 1920s, the issue of immigration began gaining momentum. More and more Americans began to believe that immigrants were not assimilating properly into American society and were the root of crime and other social problems. Eventually, this nativism found its success with the implementation of the Immigration Act of 1924. This act limited the number of immigrants that were allowed to enter the United States. Using the 1890 National Census, this quota granted visas to 2% of the total number of people of each nationality in the United States. What is interesting about this act is that it omitted Latin Americans, more specifically Mexicans, from immigration restrictions. The act primarily focused on Eastern European population and virtually forbid all Asians from entering the nation. Why would the United States government decide to leave out the Latin American population from the Immigration Act of 1924? A fundamental component needed to answer this question is understanding the agribusiness culture of the American Southwest. During the 1920s, between 5,761,000 and 6,549,000 acres of cropland were harvested. The crops cultivated were wheat, corn, vegetables, fruits, hay, rice, etc. In order to work the land, the farmers relied on Latin American labor, more specifically on Mexican labor. When a produce company executive was questioned regarding the importance of the Mexican cheap labor, he stated that, quote, large-scale production would be impossible without Mexican field labor. Without the Mexicans, costs would be increased 50%, end quote. This reliance urged the Southwest Agribusiness Corporation to send lobbyists and spokesmen to Congress to defend their labor source from being included into the Immigration Act of 1924. One of these spokesmen was S. Parker Frizzle. He was the chairman of the Agriculture Committee of the Fresno County Chamber of Commerce, as well as a farmer himself, handling an estimated 5,000 acres of cultivated land. He not only played a crucial role in preventing Mexicans from being implemented into the Immigration Act of 1924, but was also responsible for preventing additional bills from being inserted into the Act to include Mexicans. Quote, we are aware of the fact that the Act of 1924 reduced the immigration from our southern border 65%. We are quite sure that if the box bill is passed, the reduction in agricultural labor will be approximately 100%, end quote. S. Parker Frizzle was successful in protecting the influx of Mexicans by arguing that Mexicans were not immigrants, as that would imply that they seek permanent residency in the state, but rather they are homers. Quote, my experience of the Mexican is that he is a homer. Like the pigeon, he goes back to roost. He is not a man that comes into this country for nothing except our dollar and our work. And the railroad and all of us have been unsuccessful in keeping him here because he is a homer. Those who know the Mexican know that this is a fact. End quote. Many other individuals use this argument in Congress hearings. They labeled the Mexicans as birds of passage who would work hard for low wages and return to Mexico. The reason behind their use of Mexican labor is because it was the only manpower available to them. The Chinese and the Japanese are already forbidden to come, and the Eastern Europeans are restricted by the Immigration Act. The only group of people left are the Latin Americans. He also makes it known to Congress that although Mexicans pose a social problem, California is able to handle this accordingly. Ultimately, S. Parker Frizzle was able to successfully prevent the U.S. government from including Latin Americans in the Immigration Act of 1924 by arguing that the Latino population was essential to the agribusiness of the Southwest. He claimed that there wouldn't be any other group of people to replace them, as they are essentially born to do this job. Latinos, specifically Mexicans, were an irreplaceable source of labor that posed no threat to America. They are seasonal migrants that do not permanently stay in the country and do not integrate into American society. They keep their Catholic faith and Spanish language close to their hearts. The United States relies heavily on the success of the southwestern agribusiness. Without them, the nation will not be able to function properly. In order to assure their success, American politicians realized that the Immigration Act of 1924 needed to leave out the Mexican population. By allowing an unrestricted Mexican immigration, they are allowing the agribusinesses to receive a large number of laborers. Mexicans were the backbone to the agribusiness culture in America. The removal of them would only lead to negative consequences.